Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here to learn some new vocabulary with me today. In this little lesson, we're going to calmly walk through 20 very useful English words. We'll take our time really getting to know each one. Just remember, there's absolutely no rush. We're just going to go one word at a time. The whole point is to just understand and feel comfortable. So, are you ready? Let's start with our very first word. Okay, our first word is a verb, endanger. To endanger something means to put it in danger, to put it at risk of being harmed. You can even see the word danger right there inside of it. We use this a lot when we talk about the environment. For instance, pollution can endanger many species of wildlife. You'll also hear the phrase endangered by, like in, their home is endangered by logging. Next up, we have an adverb of time, gradually. This word describes something that happens slowly, over a period of time, not all at once. Like watching a flower grow, it happens gradually. We often use it with verbs that show change, like gradually increase or gradually fade. For example, she gradually learned the new system at work. And now for the complete opposite of gradually, suddenly. This adverb is for things that happen really fast and without any warning. It's perfect for those surprising moments. And here's a great tip for your own speaking or writing. You can put suddenly at the very beginning of a sentence to make it sound more dramatic. Like, suddenly, the phone rang. Here we have a noun phrase that you'll probably see in more formal places. Selection criteria. Let's just break that down real quick. Selection is all about choosing something, and criteria are the standards or rules you use to make that choice. So, selection criteria are just the official rules for picking someone or something, like the requirements for a university application. All right, let's move on to this verb, endorse. When you endorse something, you're publicly saying, I support this. It's a pretty strong formal word. You see this all the time in two main places. In marketing, when a famous person endorses a shampoo, and in politics, when a politician endorses another candidate. Now, this next one isn't a full word, but it's a super useful little suffix, wise. You can stick wise on the end of a noun, and it just means in terms of that thing. So skill-wise means in terms of her skills. It's a handy little shortcut in conversation. You might hear someone say, time-wise, are we okay? Or money-wise, we're doing all right. Let's take a look at the noun pace. Your pace is just the speed you're moving at. You can walk at a fast pace or a slow pace. And a really kind and useful phrase is, go at your own pace. It's a wonderful way to tell someone that it's okay, they don't need to hurry. Here's a simple one, but a really essential noun for the kitchen, pan. A pan is just that metal container you cook with, usually for frying things. It tends to be flatter than a pot, and a classic piece of cooking advice is always heat the pan before you add the oil. Our next noun is palace. Now, a palace isn't just a big house. We're talking about a huge, grand, official home for a ruler, like a king or a president. Think of a mansion, but even more important and impressive. It's a word that makes you think of royalty. And our 10th word is thunder. You know that loud, deep, rumbling sound you hear during a storm right after you see a flash of lightning? Well, that's thunder. A really common way to describe it is to say the thunder rumbles. And just like that, that's 10 words. We're already halfway through. How are you doing? Let's just pause here for a second. Take a nice little breath. There's no pressure at all. And when you're ready, we'll keep going. Okay, ready to continue? Our next word is crash. Now, crash can be a noun or a verb, and it describes a really violent collision. You can have a car crash, of course, but notice the example here, it's also used for other powerful things. We say that waves crash against the rocks. The key idea is always a loud, forceful impact. Ooh, this is a great word for critical thinking, fallacy. A fallacy is basically a wrong idea, a mistaken belief that's based on a bad argument. For example, it's a common fallacy that you'll catch a cold from being out in the rain. The adjective form of this is fallacious. You could say, that's a fallacious conclusion. Next up, we have the noun vault. A vault is a super secure room that's made to protect valuable things. I want you to picture one of those huge, heavy, round doors you see in movies about banks. That's a vault. The word itself just sounds safe and secure, doesn't it? Here is a very, very useful adverb, ultimately. Ultimately just means in the end, or when you get down to the most important point. We use it to talk about the final truth of a situation. For example, we can talk about it for hours, but ultimately, it's your choice. Let's look at the word tap. Now, tap is interesting. First, as a verb, to tap means to touch something lightly, like tapping your fingers on a desk. But tap can also be a noun. The thing in your sink that water comes out of, that's a tap. And we call the water tap water. And finally, you might hear the phrase to tap out, which means to give up, especially in sports like wrestling. Here's a really important adjective, historic. Now be careful. Historic doesn't just mean something is old. It means it's so important that it's going to be remembered in history. You know, a 200-year-old barn is old, but the place where a peace treaty was signed, that's historic. We talk about a historic moment or a historic victory. Our next word, advocate, is a 2-for-1. It can be a noun or a verb. As a noun, an advocate is a person who publicly supports or fights for something, like he is a strong advocate for human rights. As a verb, to advocate means to do that supporting. He advocates for policy changes. See the difference? Now for a personality adjective, stubborn. A stubborn person is someone who just will not change their mind, even if there are good reasons to. It usually has a bit of a negative feeling to it. If you call someone stubborn, you're kind of saying they're being unreasonable. The animal that's most famous for being stubborn is a mule. Our 19th word is painless. This one is pretty easy to figure out if you look at its parts. You've got pain and the suffix less, which just means without. So, painless literally means without any pain. You might hope for a painless trip to the dentist, but we also use it to talk about any task that was just really easy. You could say, wow, that meeting was surprisingly painless. And our final word is the noun stupidity. Stupidity is behavior that shows a real lack of good judgment or common sense. Now, this is a very strong and insulting word, so you want to be careful with it. You might use it to describe a decision that was just clearly a terrible, terrible idea. For instance, it was an act of pure stupidity to lend him the money. And that's it. That's our 20th word. You have done a fantastic job today. Seriously. Now, the best way to really make these words a part of your vocabulary is to actually use them. So here's a very simple little assignment. Just choose one word from our lesson today, any word you like, and find a moment to use it in a real sentence this week. Thank you so much for taking this time to learn with me today.